The Agroprom Underground. Such an iconic place in the zone, we stalkers have spent hours exploring these tunnels, and yet we only rarely ask ourselves the important questions. What is this place? What is its history? What was its purpose? Hello stalkers, and welcome to the Anomalous Dugout. In this video, we will try to answer these questions. Obviously, major spoilers ahead, and now let's get right into it. First, let's take a look at the history of the area. Of course, the Agroprom Underground was not built in the middle of nowhere. It was dug under two landmarks, the Agroprom Research Institute and the Agroprom Factory. The institute was built in the 1960s and was designated Institute of Crop Selection and Genetics. Its goal was to experiment new types of crops in nearby fields. After the Chernobyl disaster in 1986, the institute was closed and the experimental fields burned. Yet the place opened again a bit later, becoming the Research Institute for Agriculture on Irradiated Soil. That's when military barracks and a fence were built on top of the area. In the late 1980s, the factory was built. Its purpose would be to construct and test machines that could treat irradiated soils. However, it is said that such machines were never actually built, despite the fact that the institute received very generous fundings from the state. This, combined with an increased security at the institute, seems to indicate that something unusual was happening in the Agroprom. And that was the case indeed. The facility was a cover-up for early mind control experiments, which were conducted underground during Soviet times. So we don't know when that was exactly, since Soviet times refers to anything between 1922 and 1991, but I believe that the tunnels were built at the same time as the factory, most likely in 1989.
The Chernobyl zone was not used as a testing site for experiments until 1989.
In any case, the experiments involved programming simple commands in the mind of animals, so it seems that this research was a premise to Psi emissions. It is unknown what happened to the institute after the second disaster in 2006, but eventually the surrounding anomalous zone led to the location being abandoned. By 2011, stalkers had established bases in the area. Loners held the factory, and duty the institute. It was duty personnel who discovered documents about the secret Soviet experiments in the tunnels. They also tried to block some of the passages of the underground, but a misuse of explosives led to new caverns being opened, and a flow of mutants started to constantly attack the surface. As a response, duty sent the mercenary S.T.A.L.K.E.R down into the lower levels to flood the tunnels, and this plan worked. A few months after that, duty left the area and the institute was captured by the military. During the month of May 2012, an official investigation was carried out at the Agroprom as part of Project Truth. The details of this secret Project Truth are unknown, but considering its name, I'm sure its purpose is to discover the truth behind the zone and its underground facilities. I believe that this project is the reason for the large military involvement and operations in the zone during the events of Shadow of Chernobyl. Anyway, the investigation revealed that between 2005 and 2008, the Agroprom Institute was used as a cover-up facility. All the reports sent to the Ministry of Agriculture, which should have been about the treatment of irradiated soils, were falsified, and all the funding and equipment received were transferred to another facility unknown from the government, nicknamed Laboratory X-18. The documents found also make mention of the Group, an unknown and unofficial organization of scientists working in the zone. Of course, all of this information was stolen by the Marked I and allowed the traders to find out about some of the secret labs, and ultimately to open up the way north. Now I need to mention 3 things. 1. A visit to Lab X-18 is the logical next step to take into this affair. Both Marked I and the military followed that lead, so we will do as well in a future video. 2. The mentioned group is of course the circle of scientists who studied the noosphere and who united their minds into the common consciousness. Their mistakes are also responsible for the creation of the zone. And 3. The dates are important here. The investigation report states that the Agroprom did not conduct any research in its intended field between 2005 and 2008, but the zone appeared in 2006. In the PDA encyclopedia, it says that the zone appeared in 2008, but this is a mistake. Canonically, the zone really was born in 2006. So in the investigation report, either the date is supposed to match the creation of the zone, and the number 2008 is also a mistake, or it is not, and then it means that the institute continued to function a bit after the second disaster. In any case, the end result is the same. Today the area is abandoned and empty of its former equipment. So now let's move on to the real stuff. We'll go down into the underground and try to understand what it was used for. There are many entrances to the tunnels, but some are inaccessible, like the cube staircase. Then there is the spiral staircase, ladders in the yard of the institute, and another ladder behind the factory, which is incorrectly placed. Indeed, this entrance should actually lead you above the staircase right here, and not in this tunnel. Meanwhile, the ladder in the tunnel should be located between the 4 large tanks here, just like it was in Clear Sky. Speaking of which, a large portion of the area was inaccessible in Clear Sky. This tunnel is collapsed, and this way is blocked by metal bars. But this section became accessible in Shadow of Chernobyl thanks to the work of former garbage diggers, who went into the tunnels and cleared out the way. Mole was one of those diggers, and that's how we found out about Strelok's stash. Anyway, the first thing we can notice while underground is that the lights are on, which means that they are provided with electricity. This is surprising considering that the area is supposed to be abandoned. Where does this energy come from, and who is paying for it? Well, this is a mystery of its own, and a phenomenon that can also be observed in other underground areas in the zone. My main theory is that the lights are supplied by anomalous energy flowing in the zone in the form of electricity. But who knows? In fact, there are other signs that the facility's system are still running. For example, this fan is still working. And then there is this steam leak coming out from a broken pipe. In the lower levels in Clear Sky, there are even other pipes that leak flames. I know those are just details, so I won't bother you too much with them, but I think it's quite interesting to notice. Then we can find actual power cables along the walls of some corridors, but it is unknown what they are used for. Notice that a bunch of moving electro-anomalies are sitting there. I don't believe this is a coincidence, because it seems that electro-anomalies have a tendency to spawn around all the electrical devices, such as power lines and transformers. Actually, I've been thinking lately that the same reasoning could be applied to chemical anomalies. They would have more chances of spawning in areas that contain chemical components. Indeed, in one hand we have the fruit punch, a rarely seen anomaly yet present in great quantity in the Agroprom underground. And on the other hand, we have a lot of hints that the area does contain chemicals, or at least it used to. I am speaking about the countless pipes and tubes running down the walls and ceilings, as well as the tanks and barrels that could have been filled with toxic substances. The Agroprom underground is full of these things, hundreds of meters of pipes, dozens of barrels and tanks. In fact, two of these tanks are especially interesting. The first one is a reference to the elephant's foot, a solidified mass of nuclear fuel that exists in real life inside the Chernobyl power plant. And the second one is a normal tank, but with its lid open, so it is possible to see a black and radioactive substance inside. All of this makes me believe that the Agroprom underground's real purpose was to be some sort of chemical plant, a place where dangerous chemicals would be manufactured and stored. I mean, just look at this room. It contains 4 large pools, a lot of pipes and a good load of chemical anomalies. This is also the place of the pumping station that S.T.A.L.K.E.R had to deactivate. Apparently this machinery is draining underground waters to keep the tunnels from being flooded. And guess what? At the time of Clear Sky, it was still working. But of course, S.T.A.L.K.E.R deactivated it, resulting in the lower levels being completely flooded. In any case, my theory here is that the Agroprom underground was a chemical factory. By looking at the ceiling you can even see some of the positions where new tanks were supposed to be placed, as these rings can be seen around other tanks as well. Now, there are a few other machines underground that are not used for making or storing chemicals, and that is the ventilation system. Indeed, the size of the air blowers and vents is quite impressive. For example, in this room, where you encounter your first bloodsucker, we can see 2 large fans which are part of the ventilation system, one of which is broken. Then there are large ventilation shafts basically everywhere in these tunnels. In fact, S.T.A.L.K.E.'s stash is accessed via one of the vents. You can see that the tube is supposed to go up, and that the broken piece which is down there used to connect both ends of the tube. It means that normally the room in which S.T.A.L.K.E.'s stash is would have to be accessed by other means, and that is exactly why there is a door here. This is the real entrance of this room. You can even see that the ladder in the vent was added later, maybe by S.T.A.L.K.E. himself. Anyway, what does this huge ventilation system mean? Well, of course you need to replace stale air with fresh air from the outside. This is normal in any building or underground facility. But the fact that this specific ventilation network is so big kinda confirms my previous theory about chemicals. Indeed, manipulating toxic substances in a closed area will deteriorate the quality of air much faster than usual, which means that a more powerful and voluminous ventilation system needs to be used to guarantee an acceptable condition of the air. So that was my theory on the real purpose of the Agroprom underground. I think it was a chemical plant. Now, a lot of other questions remain. If this was indeed a chemical factory, then what kind of chemicals were produced here? And how is this linked to the secret labs and the experiments about mind control? Well, I suggest you stay tuned for answers. because we will definitely talk about these subjects again in future videos. That said, it's time for me to go, so be sure to tell me what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching, stalkers, and goodbye.